Are you prepared for one of the most epic, awesome, amazing reviews of all time, featuring new clothing for a set? Hold on one second. Let me actually change really quickly. Okay, now we're good. And many Generation 1 Pokemon that burst out of the cards with their fantastic artworks. And one man wants to talk about every artist available in EX Firered and Leaf Green. Are you ready? Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Do you want to review this set? I mean, I guess so. Anyways, with all that hype died down, we can actually talk about this wondrous set that we call Fire Red and Leaf Green, which is obviously a callback to the original sets that started it all. This set came out August 30th, 2004, and features a whopping 116 cards, 4 of them being secret rare cards, and I'm excited to share these cards with you. This set also features a semi-new reverse holo pattern, which showcases smaller pattern of energy symbols, as well as nice little stars. But the reverse holo rares have this really cool Pokeball at the bottom, which actually looks quite nice. And I have a couple copies of myself so that I can show to the camera. Now, we'll just hop into the actual trainer cards. This set reprints many trainers that we've previously seen, but that's okay, because it just means we can hop into the actual artist's cards soon enough. Anyways, Kei Hoshiba appears to simply reprint the Pokeball that he did in an earlier set. Hiromichi Sugiyama reprinted to the Pokemon Reversal and the Switch trainers. Takumi Akabane appears to show the reprinted multi-energy. Keiji Kinabuchi appears to have reprinted 4 of his previous cards, the Super Scoop Up, Potion, Energy Removal 2, and the EXPL. Kenny Kuji reprints one of their cards, the Energy Switch, and then Ryo Ueda, who reprints the Life Herb, from what I feel like was literally one set ago. Ken Sugimori did 2 reprints, with the Bill's Maintenance and the Professor Oak's Research, but also illustrated a new card, being the Celio's Network, which shows what I assume to be Celio and a building with a radar dish. Nakaoka returns to illustrate the Great Ball, which opens at an angle, and Mount Moon, which showcases the mountain with the moon in the background. These cards are simple, yet effective, and I quite like Nakaoka's 3D style that they've got going on. Next, we have Kei Utsunomiya, who is a name only appearing in Magma vs. Aqua, but these are the last 2 cards they ever worked on, being the Pokédex Handy 909, which shows the Pokédex with green lines below it, and the Versus Seeker, which showcases the Seeker with rings around it and waves behind it. These 2 trainers by Utsunomiya aren't as cool as their Pokemon that they did in the last set, but they are still effective trainers. Oh wow. Please don't collapse on me. Oh. Anyway, that's convenient. I didn't even have to make an opening. It just kind of happened on its own. Well, let's just go outside. And wow, it's beautiful out here. I mean, I love the open fields and the lush forests. It's quite nice. Anyways, let's talk about our first artist, being, oh, would you look at that? Conveniently, it's Mitsuhiro Arita, not working on anything too crazy for the set, being a Squirtle, which swims through the water with an open mouth, the Clefairy, which sits on a stump and smiles, and the Wartortle, which parkours around some rocks. These cards by Arita have that nice, realistic, and pleasing style to them, and I'm happy to see his artwork in this set. And next, we have Kyoko Umamoto, who worked on the Rattata, which prances around the grass with a nice purple background, the Jigglypuff, who looks forwards with a nice setting sun and water near it, and the Wigglytuff, which climbs on a blossoming tree branch, and finally the Raticate, which looks at the camera as it gnarls its teeth and enters a little hole in the wall. Umamoto's style is always pleasing to look at, being simplistic and very fascinating. Always something grandiose about either the backgrounds or the assets of the cards themselves. Now, we get to talk about an artist who we literally have not seen since base set. Isn't that crazy? This is the only reason I can see them maybe bringing back older artists into newer sets, because this literally just proves it. Tomoaki Imakuni ever only worked on 1 card in base set, which was the Porygon, and now they have worked on 1 card for Fire Red and Leaf Green. And could you guess what it is? Yeah, it's the Porygon. How poetic. This one can be seen moving through a cyberscape, which looks quite cool, might I add. Definitely better than one from base set. Sumiyoshi Kizuki only worked on 1 card in this set, which is a Lickitung, and this one is another card to feature those thick outlines that Kizuki has most of the time, as apples fall from a tree and hit the Lickitung in the face, which is quite cute. And next, we have Koki Saito, who worked on the Krabby, which looks towards us as its claws are primed facing towards the camera, and the dunes can be seen behind it. And then, we have the Charmander, which opens its mouth and it prances around a forest. The Onyx, which can be seen with its mouth open and it strikes towards the camera, with a dust cloud that can be seen. And the Charmeleon, which prances to the left with the sun blaring in the back, and more dust is seen. The Scyther, which admittedly is actually pretty cool, as it swings down its scythes and looks towards the camera with a menacing face. Then the Kingler, which looks down from above, looking ready to pinch at the camera. Overall, these cards by Saito are all dynamic, and their style has developed a lot since they started. Next, we have Yukiko Baba, who worked on the Drowsy, which looks at the camera dead on, raising its hand up, and the Zubat and the moon can be seen in the back. Something funny about this card is that they literally misspelled Drowsy's name with an S instead of a Z, which I find funny. And then we have the Hypno, which raises up its pendulum, and numbers can be seen in different colors in the background, which actually does look very nice. The Farfetch'd holds its leek and looks to the right, and it floats around in the water. Nice to see Baba back, and they still haven't received a card since all the way back in Skyridge, but I personally love their style, and I miss seeing their cards. Ah, it's nice to relax for a second and enjoy the scenery a bit. Hey, wait a second. What's that? Ah, where is that sound coming from? Why? Oh wow. Why would you do this? The forest was amazing, and you just ruined it like this? This was your doing, was it not, mythical monster? Anyways, we're gonna have to talk about the holographic cards in this set. And firstly, we'll start with Masakazu Fukuda, a new artist introduced to us in this set, but this name will not be forgotten anytime soon. But anyways, they started with the cute little Meowth, which looks back at the camera and it casts a shadow, and the Persian, which looks to the right, and swings its tail back and forth, with some beautiful scenery in the background. And then the Tauros Hollow, which is only mildly terrifying. I mean, the artwork in and of itself is quite beautiful, but there's just something about that face that feels just a little bit too manly for me. Anyways, Fukuda is an artist who I will be thoroughly discussing in the future, so be excited for that. And now we have Kagemaru Himeno, who worked on the silly little Venonat, which looks up in the rain, the Doduo, which screams with the right head and runs forwards, the Venomoth, which floats along to the right with the sunset, the Dodrio, which all look in one direction with the deep and complex sky in the background, and the Snorlax Hollow, which puts one of its arms on its face and peers over downwards, which looks really nice. Himeno is a staple of the TCG. Every set that they're in is guaranteed to be an absolute banger. And now we have Yukamori, whose clay cards are here to show off artistic awesomeness, or something. We have the Slowpoke, which looks up at an opening in a cave, the Paris, who walks along some moss, the Parasect, which raises a claw and looks at the camera, the Tangela, which sits down on a tree branch, and the Slowbro Hollow, which sits down and smiles, holding up its hands, which is really cute. Now, we talk about Ken Sugimori, and like usual, I'll only pick a handful of the 13 cards that he did for this set, being the Magnemite, which has polarities in the background and a yellow outline. The Growlithe looks to the left with a nice sky in the back. The Haunter looks ominous with its glowing hand and misty background. And Magneton, which is nice and it projects energy outwards. Then, and the Poliwrath Hollow is in a cool pose and looks upwards. Sugimori still does these default render Pokemon, and I still don't know how to feel about them compared to the very unique artwork of the other artists. Next, we have Midori Hirata, who worked on the cute Pikachu that looks right at the camera, and looks especially fat and cute in this card, and the Pidgey, who looks at the camera as it stands on a pathway. The Charmander prances along some desert dunes, and the Pidgeotto flies above the camera as feathers float down and the sun shines through. The Raichu Hollow looks at the camera from the other angle, as its tail swings at the camera, which does look quite nice. And finally, the Pidgeot Hollow shows it looking right at us, as it flies through the open skies. Harada's artwork is striking, and their shading style makes them easily recognizable, in my opinion. Now, we talk about Hisao Nakamura, who I really enjoy talking about. Firstly, we have the Spearow, which looks at the camera with rocks in different directions, the Nidoran, which stands with some cliffs in the back, the Nidorino, which steps forwards on a rock, the Fearow, which sprawls its wings outwards and feathers fly everywhere, and finally, the Nidoking Hollow, which punches a rock looking forwards, with very upset and determined. Ayakusube has returned to make 4 cards for the set, and we'll start with the Shelter, which swims up with a bunch of cloudy smoke all around it, the Cubone, which lays down in the corner sad, and the Cloyster, which looks up from the depths with a malignant smile, and finally the Marowak Hollow, which holds its bone as its face looks to the left. These cards are all amazing Kusube artworks, and they look especially grainy in this set. Next, we'll talk about Naoya Kimura working on the other Nidoran, which looks forwards as autumn leaves fall on the back, the Nidorina, which stands on those autumn leaves and looks up, and the Nidoqueen Hollow, which looks forwards with an open mouth. Finally, the Kangaskhan Hollow, which punches towards the screen with the little baby pouch punching with it, which is just adorable. Our next artist is Tomokazu Kamiya, working on the Bellsprout, which opens its mouth as it rests, the Weepin' Bell, which spews out toxic gas from its mouth and looks upset, the Execute, which plot a devious plan with the middle egg having its tongue out, the Victory Bell Hollow, which looks very malleable as it looks at the camera, and the Executor, which stomps down onto the camera, and all the heads have different unique faces. When it comes to raw confusion and intrigue, Kamiya is the best, in my opinion. Next, we have Miki Tanaka working on the Mankey, which hangs off a tree. the Primeape, which busts through some kind of wall and debris can be seen flying everywhere, the Chansey, which sits down by a tree sleeping, and the Ditto Hollow, which smiles and sits in the open waters, which is quite cute. Tanaka's cards are always simplistic and charming, with nice neat little backgrounds, and there's always something going on in the foreground or the background to make their cards stand out. Next, we have Toshino Aoki working on the Squirtle, which sits by a pond, as other Squirtle emerges from the water, the Seal, which looks right at another seal, and the sky in the back is a deep purple, and the Dugong Hollow, which swims along the sea, with other Dugongs sitting in the background. Unfortunately, we won't see Aoki's name for quite some time, which is really unfortunate, because so far their artwork has made these past couple of sets really fun to cover, as I've come to appreciate this artist more and more. It's sad that we won't see them for a little while, but that's okay, because someday I'll talk about all the Aoki cards in the future. Now, we have Atsuko Nishida working on the Magikarp, which bounds out of the water with the moon being slightly obstructed by the clouds, the Caterpie, which looks up from the grass, and the Bulbasaur, which extends a hand and looks to the left, the Metapod, which climbs up a tree, the Ivysaur, which sits down in a nice field, and the Butterfree Hollow, which flaps its wing around with a very big looking head. Nishida's artworks always give me a sense of joy because of the soft shading that they use on their cards. And finally, for regular cards and regular artists, we have Hajime Kusujima working on the Weedle, which looks up standing next to a tree, and the Diglett, which burrows up from the ground looking very upset, the Bulbasaur, which stands on the glistening water, the Kakuna, which show an army of Kakuna, which does look quite awesome, the Dugtrio, which stands on top of a mountain with the sun peering in the back, and the Beedrill Hollow, which shows Beedrill buzzing around the other Beedrill in the background, which actually does look really nice. Now, we move on to the EX cards. Firstly, we have the two EX cards by Hikaru Koike, being the Blastoise EX, which looks forwards as the camera looks down on the Pokemon, with white energy flying everywhere, which looks quite nice, and the Blastoise also looks pretty upset. The other EX that Koike did would be the Gyarados EX, which roars at the camera, and its body coils behind it, which looks imposing and menacing. Mitsuhiro Rita worked on two EX cards, being the Clefable EX, which looks at the camera and raises an arm, with a swirly background behind its hand, and the Gengar EX, which smiles and bounces around, which just looks absolutely awesome, with a super unique hexy background. Then we have Hiromichi Sugiyama's EX card, being the Charizard EX, which spews fire outwards and to the left of the card, which admittedly does look pretty cool. I like the dark shading used on its face. Finally, we have Ryo Ueda, who worked on the Electrode EX, which looks up as lightning strikes all around it and on top of it. The Mr. Mime EX, which looks to the right, with a nice green background, and the other Mr. Mime EX, which looks left, with a red background. Weird that they did too, but they also worked on the Venusaur EX, which roars towards the camera with a blue background and the sun peeking through. But you didn't think that we could finish the setup without talking about the secret rares, did you? Firstly, we have the secret rare Charmander, of course it is, by Ken Sugimori, of course it is. Um, it's Charmander with a hollow pattern, which is really cool. Anyways, we also have three other secret rares, being the beautiful legendary bird EXs by Ryo Ueda, featuring cracked ice hollow patterns. First, we have the Articuno EX, which spreads its wings upwards with its claws out, the Moltres EX, which spreads a bunch of fire below it, and the Zapdos EX, which has bolts of lightning all around it as it flies face first towards the camera, and purple fire and energy can be seen behind it, looking quite awesome. These secret rare EX cards are really cool, and it's nice to see the legendary birds featured here. When it comes to my favorite cards in this set, I gotta say that I really like the Zapdos secret rare, the Gengar EX, Electrode EX, and the Blastoise EX. Then the Beedrill, Kangaskhan, Marowak, Nidoking, Snorlax, and Victory Bell holo cards. And then the Farfetch'd, Drowsy, Onix, Porygon, Wartortle, Bulbasaur number 55, Squirtle, and the Venonat. Overall, this set is super nice, and it features many Pokemon that I enjoy the artwork of, and I think there's a little something for everyone to appreciate about this set. Anyways, in the next video, we'll be talking about EX Team Rocket Returns, which I am extremely excited to talk about. Make sure you let me know in the comments what your favorite card from this set was. Like and subscribe. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Bye now.